You are watching Rarely Reserved, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast. I am Charles, also known as Rarely Omnis, and I am here with the Rarely Reserved Queen of Droids, Sin herself.
In the flesh, unfortunately, as much as I'd prefer to be a droid, but we are here.
Wait, I thought that you didn't want to be a droid, that you wanted to like maintain the fleshiness, and you just wanted a lot of droid companions. I'm torn here.
I go back and forth, I think. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, let's be a droid, and sometimes I'm like, no, I must be the one fleshy to rule them all. But I haven't fully decided on that front.
Have you ever watched the Terminator movies? Like how much of the Terminator movies have you actually seen?
None.
Okay, so I could definitely loan you Terminator movies. But there's a prequel where one of the characters is like very like part robot, and I want to just discuss the movie with you now, to be entirely honest.
Yeah, I mean, so many Star Wars characters are partially robot, or droid, whatever you want to say. So it's not an unknown.
All right. Well, let's get into things. So, we actually did not discuss who was going to be on the puck or who was going to decide the puck. So I'm just going to decide right now, and we're going to do Grogu, the guy who was on the puck. Guy, I think Grogu's the guy. I actually don't know Grogu's gender off the top of my head. I'm not sure if that was confirmed. Grogu was on a puck, and like probably the cutest thing in all of Star Wars. Is Grogu the cutest thing in all of Star Wars?
I mean, if you like the fleshy stuff, I think so.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Is he the cutest flesh thing in Star Wars? Jesus.
I will give you that one, yeah.
Okay. So it might be different for you, because I don't know if you've watched through the Mandalorian show. But I remember the show coming out, and Grogu, I don't believe, was in the initial like advertisements, because we didn't know what he was like. When he was introduced, we didn't know, or at least I didn't know. I wasn't doing any sort of research. So if it was kind of spoiled, there wasn't this like, hey, Grogu is coming. And we didn't even know his name was Grogu for quite a while. But this like father-son relationship with Grogu, so I guess we could kind of start it off. Like, what do you think with this like child adoptee sort of like Star Wars going, hey, we're going to put something really cute with badass Star Wars stuff and just like let everybody vibe? And what are your general thoughts there?
I mean, the other most famous adopted child became like super evil, so I have pretty big plans for Grogu.
Plans to make him evil? What are you trying to say there?
Nothing. I didn't say that. Nothing was said. I look forward to a healthy and bright future for young Grogu.
All right. I think during your surgery recovery, I think you need to skip ahead. I think I need you to just watch the three seasons of The Mandalorian, and you probably have to deal with the Book of Boba Fett in there, because it like breaks off and becomes season 3.5 for Mando. I think I just need you to have like hit that part of the Star Wars universe, because it's so important to me. So I think that's something that we're going to have to schedule in your recovery.
I mean, I'll be doing a whole lot of nothing. So, and I realized that I can, since I get to work early a lot to do like inventory stuff, I can put TV shows and movies on the TV in there. So I'm like, oh, I can start watching stuff while I do this.
I totally realized that I didn't actually turn on the pucks behind me, and I feel like I've been a failure. So, why don't you share a couple of general Grogu thoughts from what you do know while I turn these on?
General Grogu thoughts. Well, I honestly can't think about Grogu without thinking of our purse dog episode because that's really what comes to mind now. And when I see Grogu, I think that what a wonderful purse dog.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would be happy to have a Grogu. I don't wait. Do I want a Grogu? I kind of avoided having kids. I think there's a part of like, yes, I would like a force using purse dog, but I think there's also probably a part of me that would be like, oh my God, I am trying to play a game of Shatterpoint. Would you stop stealing people's cookies?
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility, and that little guy has great power.
All right. Well, let's shift into what we've been up to. So I know it's been a little bit of a challenge for you, right, with the injury, but we've been trying to come up with some creative ways for you to get in Shatterpoint experiences, Shatterpoint discussion points. What do you want to talk about in your what you've been up to this particular week?
I did start painting the one box. So it's been a journey because I can only do it for little bursts at a time. But pretty much I have like this sprint of time that I can break the rules a little bit and do some painting before I have to have surgery. So we're breakneck speed. Well, by breakneck, I mean I do it for 20 minutes and then I say ow for 40 minutes and then I do it for 20 minutes again.
That's, yeah, I mean, that would kind of drive me nuts because I'm so much like, I want to get something done. I want that dopamine hit for the completion or, the wrap. Like some of the final touches is like my favorite part where you're like, okay, highlight this and like little dry brushing here and paint the rim of the base and like being happy that I'm ready to play it. That's the moment that I want to get to. Is it hard for you to kind of be in this like super delayed gratification paint mode?
I'm used to just like zoning out and locking in and painting for like 18 hours and then being like, wow, I haven't eaten or slept, but look how much I've done. So having to actually self-regulate. Well, I mean, I'm not self-regulating. My body is imposing limits upon me. Has been ultra frustrating, but I'm like, I gotta. If this is the only way I can do it, it's the only way I can do it. I just have to do it.
Okay, genuine question here, because you said 18 hours, and I'm still getting to know you. It is still, I mean, we're actually closing in on a year. We're at like 9 months or a little under 9 months or something of hang time. But is 18 months an exaggeration or sorry, not 18 months, 18 hours of like painting marathon? Is that an exaggeration or is that a real, like actually, no, I definitely will just do painting for 18 hours.
My record of like fully locked in, not doing anything else is 30 hours. But that wasn't like a thing that I really, that wasn't really a marathon on purpose. That was because it was before a Warhammer event and I had to finish them. And they were painted enough, but it was the last unit, and it was a knight, which is a really big model. And I was like, I can't have him look shabby while everyone else looks awesome. So I was like, I only have 30 hours until the event. I spent all 30 of them painting. He was like, the varnish was still wet on his butt cheeks when I brought him to the event.
Okay. Follow-up question. How many times over the course of a year prior to your injury? So let's just say in 365 days, how many times would you say you do an 18-hour plus painting marathon over the course of a year?
Weekly, probably.
Fucking weekly? Jesus, 20-something-year-olds are nuts.
I don't know. Like when I'm excited about something, which I usually am once I decide to paint something, I am like a dog with a bone. Like I don't let it go until I start passing out from fatigue.
Okay, why? So when I asked the question, I was thinking maybe you answer once a month or once every 2 months as like a high end possibility. A weekly is so so the closest thing that I can do by a comparison is like new video game. 18 hours would be definitely a new video game that I want to get into. I could definitely do an 18-hour binge, but so you must enjoy it on that level. And I know you have a husband who's definitely video gamer guy, and we'll get into that. So is it just like, is it from a pure joy perspective where like you were just enjoying that entire process?
I I don't know how to describe. I guess it's like well, he can vouch because he will frequently like I will wake up early, be excited to paint, go downstairs, paint. He will leave for work, be gone all day, come back home. I'm still painting. And then around like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, he comes down and goes, okay, you're done, and makes me go to bed. So, I don't know. It's like, once I like lock in on something, I just can't like, I don't remember anything else is going on. I only really am vaguely aware of the passage of time because sometimes I won't have like a playlist will end suddenly, and I'm like, this playlist is 8 hours long. How did I? Oh, it's been 8 hours. Oops.
Okay, wild. So we're all learning a little bit of sin here. So, well, I think I'll shift it back my direction. And the big project this past week is I got the second GoPro, and the most common comment that I get on the videos in general is that people would like a side view of games. Now, it's important for me to do a top down because I can have one camera grab the dice trays, the cards, the table, everything. I cannot do that with a side view camera. But I wanted to pick up a second camera anyway, so I had the potential to record 2 games. So either way, I wanted a second camera. I'm like, you know what? Might as well test it out. See, and I found a $20 mount that will work with what I'm already using, that can mount the side view camera. So again, setup remains relatively easy. I am managing 2 cameras, so there's a little bit more potential because I'm like, got to make sure that both of them are charging, both of them are recording, sync them up, and all of the additional editing time and that sort of thing. But wanted to experiment with it. I will say the first game, which will already be out before this episode, or no, it is already out. It's out right now, but it was not a great first game for the side view camera because of just where the terrain was located and where the action ended up happening. It was not the best game to showcase it. So I definitely was going through the whole process going, maybe I should have picked something a little bit different. But the funny thing is, as I was setting up the table in mind for cameras, and there was some lessons that were learned. But did you get a chance to take a look at this video at all? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I watched it, or I watched part of it, and then had to take my dog to the emergency vet. She's fine. She's fine. It ended up being a hyper overprotective mom scenario.
Thank
where she's
Grievous.
fine. Yeah. And so, yeah, so she's fine. But it did mean that I watched the beginning of the video, and it was funny because I was like, I started it and I was like, oh, this is the same. Am I losing it? This is the same angle, and then you're like, oh, I can't move it until, and I was like, oh, okay. And then like, I think right as the, like, I didn't get very far into the video. I was like, right as I think you were like, and the camera's shifting, I like look over at my dog and I'm like, oh no. So nothing went correctly today, but I'm excited to watch the rest of it. Although I do think it's funny that apparently it's the wrong game for the angle.
Yeah, it was. So I'd recorded some MCP games first, and so I kind of positioned the camera relatively how I was in that. And I think in Shatterpoint, it needs to be a little bit higher than maybe what I set it as in that first game, just because of the nature of the tall terrain and whatnot. And so it just felt like in deployment, you couldn't see most of my stuff because it was being blocked by terrain in the side view. You couldn't see most of the other players' stuff because it was being blocked by terrain. And then the first 20 minutes of the game, we're fighting on this edge of the table that's right where the camera's cutting off part of the models because it's pointed at an angle and then they're up on terrain. And so it just perfectly, we just focused on this one objective point for a good chunk. And then the middle objective was active in the second struggle. And that one was important, but the second struggle went very fast. And so it was definitely a case of, it became more useful as the game went on, but it was definitely not, it didn't feel like it was very useful during the first few activations. And so, lesson learned. But it's good. That is going to kind of lean into our main topic there. But that's been a little bit of my journey. And I will admit I'm getting more into the video editing part of this, which I thought would be the part that I would dislike. And I know you've done some video editing in your artsiness. I don't know if you enjoy it as much as you like painting, but
it's something that I think I am capable of, but not particularly adept at. But that might just because I have a limited amount of time doing it. But it is something where I thought I can help more for this, editing this. But I have a suspicion that I might not do it quite to the standard that you like right off at the start. So I have been all right, maybe I'll pitch it and then be all right, you edit it also. And then when it inevitably is bad, then it won't be that big of a deal. But at least the bonus episodes. I was maybe the bonus episodes can be my baby. I don't know. But I mean, they sort of, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think it's mostly that the effort it would take to get you the files and everything is almost the same amount of effort to get it ready for the most part. And so it's, cause we are dealing with large video files and such. And so, but honestly, for the most part, editing Rarely Reserved is pretty smooth now. Unless we start shifting, if we get really into this down the road, one of the things in a back and forth podcast, if somebody's talking for a while, I could definitely be switching between views where you focus on the person that's talking and then you switch to the other person and rotate through some of those views. That is certainly a possibility down the road, but I don't know. We go back and forth. Have you watched any of our podcast since it went to video, and do you think something like that would even be necessary?
I don't watch all of them, and that's not because I don't like them. It's because sometimes after we record, I'm I am embarrassed, and so I pretend like I never did it. But the ones that I don't feel that way about, I do watch. So maybe, yes, possibly. I think that it would depend on the episode. How impactful that would be. I don't know. If anything, I think it would be more I just like visual aids. I know that the podcast that I like to watch, whenever they're talking about a model, they bring the model up on the screen or the stat line on the screen or whatever. But I know that's a lot of effort. And those podcasts usually have a dedicated editor who is not one of the people talking. So I know that's a lot of added work.
Yeah, there's all of these layers to like potentially enhancing that experience. And I think there's definitely a world, especially if we have 3 people, like we bring on a guest for something. I think then there's more conversation where you potentially like, oh, if AMG is on and we're just letting Schick or something answer a complicated question, we could cut to him talking and then like switch back. Like there's a lot of ground to like play around there. But thankfully, I've been doing some of the editing while I'm sitting at work with nothing to do. And so that is like keeping an ease on my general amount of time to do everything. But yeah, overall, it's flowing nicely, and I'm excited to see where all of this goes. But shifting it back to just like pure Shatterpoint stuff, it's been interesting because we've talked about how the last few months for me have been like really experimental lists. We kind of all agreed it's like, hey, we're just not going to do much Cassian boss for a hot minute. Not that we don't like playing them, or not that we were adverse to playing against them. It was just like, hey, let's experiment. And part of it was, I think, Ryan and Donovan were being very helpful of kind of like, what sort of stuff do you want on the channel? Like, what sort of games do you want? And I'm like, let's go through some of the other stuff. Like, we're going to get back into the grind meta, right? And whether it's Adepticon prep or qualifiers or, GT prep down the road, we're always going to be doing some of that. We didn't have any of it on the early horizon. So let's try stuff. Let's experiment with the characters that we're wanting to try. But, if everybody's doing Cassian boss, we don't want to just throw this new weird list into that stuff. And that was super fun. But now they're starting to prepare for the LVO qualifier. And so like, I've got to shift mindset a little bit. And I was like, what's the toughest stuff that I can come up with all of the things that I've been trying. And so I did build a list. I haven't gotten to play this one specifically, but it's Cassian, IG-88 Rebel Commandos with, Mandalorian, Bodhi, and then Bazin Chirrut. And the idea here is that I think there's the potential that Cassian Mando is maybe the best combination in the game. And I was thinking, I really wanted to try something a little bit different. And I was thinking about what I could do with it. And I thought that IG-88 in Cassian would be quite cool because he could still amplify Mando damage, but gives me this like just really kind of dependable secondary activation. So I'm excited to dig into some of this a little bit and test those boys. Did you have any comments on the list?
I mean, I'm not going to say no to a droid making its way into a list. I think I would be interested to play it. I don't know how excited I'd be playing against it, like, especially because the lists I'm wanting to play are pretty casual, and skew lists that are just for funsies. But it'll certainly be one that I would watch a video of.
Yeah, I mean, I still have, like, that was the weirdest thing is like, while most people were complaining about the meta, I felt like I had more lists that I wanted to try than ever before, where there were just so many weird combinations. And I'm still working on a fix for my Mother Talzin model. And once that's done, I want to play Mother Talzin again. So I might play Mother Talzin into you if we get a game against your ladies list. But yeah, and so that was just something that was crossing my mind. And the video's already out. I was thinking about something totally different than Cassian Mando because I like variety in what I'm playing. But I wanted something that would feel hyper competitive and like help them practice and like the iron sharpens iron feel and put whatever their competitive lists were to the test. But I wanted something that didn't include Cassian and Mando and was very different. And so I was like, well, I've been meaning to try Vader 1 and Iden, like pure played at LVO, but I wanted to put my own spin on it. And so I ended up bringing Vader 1 with Stormtrooper, Sergeant, and Death Troopers. Then I got very weird with the Iden list, and I did Iden, Bosk, and Han and Chewie, so that Bosk and Han and Chewie could payday to become Imperial, to get the Iden triggers, to get Vader dice. And I gotta tell you, this was fun. Oh man, Bosk rolling Vader dice and like always going all the way down his tree and then getting Iden triggers. Oh my God, do I love that lizard boy. Oh man, Sin, it was so much fun.
Yeah, I heard you read that out, and I was like, I would just like leave if someone put that in front of me. Like, nope, can't deal with that. Nope.
Oh, it was so much killing. When you have like a Vader activation that usually just kills something, you got an Iden activation that usually just kills something. Han and Chewie activation normally just kills something. And now Bosk is actually killing most things because he can do 8 damage on his tree. And going 5 down with 3 extra dice, not crazy. But he also has a bomb. He can also just like roll 5 dice and deal you expertise damage. And so the amount of activations that could just potentially put people on their back foot, and the amount of like healing and additional status effects. Dude, Bosk in that list is so much fun. That it was possibly my favorite Bosk ever.
I'm excited to watch the rest of that video, but I'm also terrified that you'll ever bring that out when we're playing.
Well, there was this really interesting discussion because Kenny had popped into the Discord because I was commenting on his most recent episode. And one of the things that they had said on Zion's Finest was that there is this kind of cusp in Shatterpoint where if you cross a wounding threshold, that the game gets worse. And I do think I agree with them on that point. When we're at the nice, like both sides get 2 to 3 wounds, things are fine. I think there's a point that you can easily cross when you start getting into, going into struggle 2, both sides have 3-4 wounds, and the game breaks down a little bit. I don't think it functions quite as well. And so I do think that wounding dial is a really interesting one for AMG to play with, where I don't think you don't want the movement list where it's like, there was a point where we were talking about the game where it was like, you want every opportunity to move your other characters onto points because that's so important. But once you hit the wounding, then like the movement doesn't matter because you're like, well, moving dead shit doesn't do anything. But the game kind of breaks down, and like the order deck gets a whole lot worse when you're like, okay, new shuffle. I need to get these 4 characters active again. And if you then hit the characters who are already alive and you're like, I need the other characters to be alive for me to score points. So there is, I do think when the wounding stuff is too good that the game can definitely break down a little bit. Is that a feeling that you share?
I think that all minis games struggle at a certain point in their life with accidentally dialing death in too hard, and because it's an easy thing to make good killing, and so every game I've ever played has points in it where it's like, this is a kill heavy meta, this is a wound heavy meta, and in a game like this one where I feel like it was never designed to be the point, especially with how the characters rarely are supposed to rarely leave the board. When it starts, like, I think you're absolutely right. When it starts to lean in that direction, it was never an intentional design. So it starts to feel just wrong. Not that like there shouldn't be wound intensive lists, but if like it turns into, well, everything just is that, I think it does, break the fundamental of the game and makes it feel bad.
I will say, though, my game with Donovan, where we ended up with 19 wounds in a single game, and I forget how many characters left the table. It was at least 6. At least 6 models were removed from the table by the end of the game. That game was really fun, but that managed to happen at like a very interesting pace. And so that managed to like preserve the integrity of the game. But, Yeah, it can certainly be fun, but I think also it can deteriorate things.
Yeah, maybe the exception that proves the rule. Like if it felt like so many things had to go right to maintain the fun of it, then it's probably like okay, well you got away with that one, but probably not try it again.
Yeah, I don't. There is certainly a part of me that's like, Donovan, we should see if we can break the 19. But like, you got to like play out the game normally, and but both bring wounding lists and see if we can push that threshold and break our record. But yeah, the problem is most of the time, when you get a good spike in wounds early, the game can just like spiral out of control. Someone hits a weird order deck or something, and then you just don't get to, the game like kind of falls apart. But anyway, we're going to shift into the next topic, which is we have an LVO qualifier coming up. And so first off, you ended up making a deal with your boss, and now you get to play in the LVO qualifier on February 7th. So are you excited to actually like get to do a Shatterpoint event again?
I am. I want everyone to know that I'm sacrificing my ability to watch the Super Bowl to play Shatterpoint. So that's where my loyalties are. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little incredibly nervous because I haven't been playing at all, and now I'm about to go play in a tournament, and I probably won't have time to practice, so it'll just be thrown to the wolves type scenario. But I trust and believe in the Shatterpoint community to make it a fun feeding frenzy, as it were.
Okay, so right after the event, there is the Super Bowl. Is there a way, because I'm definitely going to watch the Super Bowl, is there a way that because you're going to be working, is there a way that I can enhance the Super Bowl experience for you? Like, because you have earbuds. Do you want me to like watch the Super Bowl and be like on a phone call with you, like talking about moments while you're working, or like texting you stuff, or like what, is there a way for me to help you like feel the cool, like Seahawks winning the Super Bowl vibe that we're going to be experiencing?
Only if you send me voice messages in your best like sports announcer voice. That would be the only way. That's the only way I'll accept it.
All right, I'm going to commit to it. If I'm even reasonably in a situation where I can send you quick voice messages, I will try to be sports announcer. I'll actually see if I can do some stuff live. Like I'm watching, and then I'm going to try to like record, like, and Rashid, he catches the punt, and like, oh my God, he's at the 50. He's at the 45. Oh my God.
See, that's what you have to do it in the best announcer voice possible. I just love the way all NFL announcers talk. So it's gotta be like that.
Okay, I will do my best. I will try to send you some fun ones to like keep you in the vibes. But back to LVO qualifier. So I had volunteered when we kind of knew that this was coming up. I'm like, hey, let me run one relatively early in the year. And this was kind of the first that we could schedule one. I think there's certainly an aspect of this that with the lull in releases, running a tournament like this in this particular moment of the game might be a mistake. And I don't think we're going to have a ton of people. But I think everybody who is coming out, we are going to have a blast. So first off, shout out to Poos from Oregon and Dylan from Canada, who are both definitely coming to converge on us. So first off, just getting to see those guys is going to be fabulous. You haven't met Poos yet, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Anyway, Poos is super sweet dude. I think you will like him. And I feel like everybody that I've been like, Sin, you were gonna like this nerd. I feel like I've got a good hit rate so far. Do you feel like that's accurate?
Almost everyone you've personally vouched for has been fantastic. So I think I have to give you the benefit of the doubt.
I'm really scared to go, wait, almost? Who did I miss on? But I'm not going to ask you that on the podcast.
Yes, don't make me do that.
But yeah, overall, I'm hyped to see people. I'm really hyped to record games for everyone and just like start this process of getting back into more Shatterpoint events. But the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about this is now I've got Train on my brain. I've added tables since Evergreen, and was kind of taking in like one of the comments post Evergreen was kind of diversity in scatter and the amount of scatter terrain and that sort of thing. And so that's been a thing I've been trying to enhance a little bit, add to the tables, and really help them have a little bit more of a unique feel. And so I'm curious, I know you haven't played a bunch on my tables lately, but do you have any thoughts about like what you want out of scatter terrain or things that you like that I've done, or if there's been things where you're like, I definitely think Omnis, you should add some more on this particular table. Anything kind of in the terrain thought that you want to throw out here?
Definitely the discussions after Evergreen made me buy a bunch of different stuff for my train sets. A lot more stuff to go on the ground. I think when I initially started, I was pretty like, since I've never played a game with like vertical aspects to it, I was a little bit obsessed with uppy downy. And so remembering that uppy downy is maybe the main part, but shouldn't be the whole part, was kind of a overcorrection for me. But I think that at least the most recent tables that I played on of yours have felt pretty appropriately balanced between up and down. I think especially the my favorite, of course, is the magma one. That one just, it looks so great and has a lot going on. And it, because of how you made everything, it feels really balanced between up, down, and flat. So I'm looking forward to playing on those tables.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Shout out to Aubrey who printed off the circular pieces for that, and I think that really enhances that particular table, gives it a unique feel. And so, unless someone was like really definitively against it, I feel like that is going to be a heavily featured table and one that I will record probably at least 2 games on during the event, just because I think that's such a cool table. But I do want to switch with another one. So I am kind of like picking which other table I'm probably most likely to feature. I'm kind of leaning away from the red and black one because I end up getting to use that one a lot. The Hoth table is a little bland, but I think that one's still kind of a cool table. The Tatooine table, I'm honestly like the most bored with. It has some good rocks and stuff, so it does have like a decent amount of scatter. I'm kind of thinking the teal, black, and silver table will be the other one that I will feature a little bit, just because I think it's a really striking color combination. I think you have played on that one. What do you think of that one as being kind of my other featured table for the day?
I have no complaints. I think that one looks great, and I think you're right, it'll look cool on camera. So, and have a kind of weird tie-in, but still be distinct from the lava table.
Huh. All right. So little terrain discussion here. Cause I do get into kind of a rhythm with placing, how I place the scatter and where I like to put it. And this thing crossed my mind. What if there was a game where I specifically put scatter terrain so you can't optimally deploy on both sides, right? Because you know how, say on shifting priorities, for example, you basically always put your primary between the 2 objectives so that you can deploy guys contesting all of them. What if I very specifically position scatter and stuff so you can't do that? And both sides have to adapt to that situation. Do you think that that's cool, or do you think that would just be very upsetting?
You know, all of the times that I've asked you questions and you've been like, why would you hurt me like this? It was finally time for you to ask me a question that hurt me. Because that's like, since I'm not super great at like deployment and all the other ones. Like, that's my safety zone, man. You're going to attack me in my safety zone and make me feel scared and alone in my safety zone. That's something I would watch other people do, but don't you dare do that to me.
What I heard was, please do that to me in round 4 when I am the most tired and the most mentally drained. Was that an accurate description of what you said?
I heard that I'm gonna steal all of your terrain and go home with it. That'll be that.
On that note, hey, by the way, can I borrow your terrain for the event?
Yes, yeah, that's as long as it never gets deployed like that or placed like that. Don't do me like that. If my own terrain screws me, show's over.
Am I allowed to screw someone else with your terrain as long as it's not you?
I'll allow it as long as it's clear I didn't set the table up.
I will specifically, during the judge speech, I'll be like, this is Sin's tables. They are pretty. I want you to know that I set them up, and I am punishing you personally. This Sin was morally opposed to me trying to wreck your deployment plans. But all right, let me take it in a different direction where like fun deployment stuff. I've been thinking a lot about deploying terrain into the deployment zones where you are starting on terrain more often. What do you think about that? Is that something that you think is interesting?
The times that I've played on tables that have had that, it's felt super fun when you get to do it and super unfun when only your opponent gets to do it. So I feel like it's something that has to be carefully balanced, or it just feels like someone else has this massive head start that you don't have. So that's like a unique balancing act. And I know that probably some people's opinion will be like, well, in a competitive setting, that would be part of the, picking the side of the board that you're on. And I'm like, yeah, but it also feels like a really great way to feel like you just got screwed right from the beginning off of a die roll. And no one wants to feel that way. So that would be my 2 cents. Either only do it for like casual games or make sure it's set up in a way that both players are evened out.
Okay, interesting. So also a little weird shout out. So when Ryan and I were playing on Saturday, we noticed that if you're playing pawns in a Republic list, right? You on Sabotage, you could choose to deploy one primary directly in the middle, and then pawns deploys range 2. And the distances are close enough that when you deploy those models off of pawns, that you can deploy that one unit contesting both of the Sabotage objectives that are closer to your deployment zone. So you could, if you want to, if say you're going first, you deploy those first, and then you get to deploy the other unit wherever you want. So you actually have a situation where like the second deployment is actually kind of interesting. And so I'm just kind of curious, one, did I explain that well enough that you can kind of visualize it? And like, what do you think of that sort of deployment?
I mean, you're not going to get me to play pawns if that's what you're trying to do.
Why the pawns hate? What do you have against pawns?
That's between me and him, okay?
Oh, geez. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting that there would be another situation where it's like, oh, okay, well now being able, like, especially if you have something like a Vader or something where you want to be able to position that on the side. If your opponent is trapped into positioning deploying in a very traditional sense, but you can deploy in a much more abstract way, I was like, oh man, that would be kind of cool. Like, I want to try it. Like, I want to do a video of me on Sabotage playing something like that and like seeing how that would all unfold.
It's just making me think of that one quote of like, it's either bold and brash or it belongs in the trash. And I don't know which is which.
Well, we have a name for the episode. Bold and brash or belongs in the trash.
Yeah.
Okay. So past some of that deployment stuff, do you have any thoughts on how much scatter you want on a table or how you want it positioned, or any situation where you're like, I don't want scatter positioned like this? Obviously, it sounds like you don't want scatter fucking up your deployment.
I think playing a lot of games, like there was a lot of different ways the trade was set up at LVO, and I liked boards that, like, if you were looking at it from top down, there's stuff every like a certain radius. I don't want to say a few inches. Like there's something in every single spot every few inches, so it's like covered fully. As long as that kind of is the case, I think that my frustration in some of them would be terrain, especially gantries that are like fully blocked by like movement blocked. I think that partial movement blocked gantries can be kind of cool, except I feel like they inherently disadvantage big butt models. But I don't like the ones that are fully blocked, especially if there's just one random one that's fully blocked. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think it's like bad per se, but it does make me kind of make this face. But that's
Great
maybe
face,
a
by the
personal
way.
problem.
100%. Top tier, 9.5 out of 10.
That would be my one like real frustration moment. I think honestly less because it messes up my game plan and more because it breaks my immersion, I guess, of like this little tiny thing is affecting my whole badass dude. So I don't know. So that would be my kind of outlook.
Yeah, I did on the Mustafar table with like the lava and stuff. There was a day that I deployed a box, or I put out a scatter piece, and I realized that I put the scatter in a spot where it stopped you from using the ladder to go halfway. We always play where you can go halfway on a ladder, right, and get off at the first elevation. But I accidentally deployed a box where you then made it so you couldn't go halfway because the box was there and it blocked the spot, so you couldn't fit there. And I actually thought that was kind of interesting, where I liked that as like, oh, in this spot, you can't use the ladder halfway. And I was like, I like that there's interesting, and it's not something that players would have to have figured out before the game, right? It's not something where you would have to have had a discussion and been like, oh, are these ladders halfway or not halfway? We always play, you can go halfway. But then to be like, well, this ladder, you kind of can't use it halfway because of that stupid box. What do you think about that?
I think especially if that's whatever that is located more centrally, that's actually super interesting to make kind of a little obstacle somewhere where you don't entirely expect an obstacle. If it's right next to your deployment zone, I feel like that might be a frustration point. But that is interesting, and like kind of an Easter egg if you're carefully looking at the terrain before you start. And so like I feel like that's one of those things that would just reward a more meticulous player, which I'm not, but I appreciate when other people are.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things where I would do on a table. Like, I haven't set up a big tournament for Shatterpoint, but I have for MCP, and I've done some very meticulous stuff where I've been very specific about the placement of terrain. And then people get to the table, set down their stuff, and set it down in a way where they like, it's on the edge of the table, and then they push it and it moves terrain. And I'm like, wait a second. I wanted that stuff in this very specific position because I was trying to create specific challenges because this is a semifinals or whatever. And I wanted you to overcome certain challenges on that side of the table. And so if I came by and I put a box there and then I came by later and like the box wasn't there for some reason, I would be like, Pure, what are you doing? Why you move my box, Pure? But okay. Before we wrap up this topic, I want to challenge you to of any of the tables that you've seen me set up, I want you to tell me something you're like, I think you should definitely set up a table this way with this thing at the qualifier, and a thing that you think that I shouldn't do. And so you can pull from any of your game knowledge from any tables where there's a thing that you think that I should try to do again, and a thing that you think that I should try to make sure is not on a table. And so I'll kick it over to you.
I think one of the things I ironically do not like is when there's a large piece of random scatter, like that touches the edge of any edge, like any edge. I don't mind when it's like a level that's up that high, but if it's just like a random rock that's just on the very edge, I don't love those.
Edge of what?
The board, like the board edge. Like any, like deployment edge, side edge. If it's just a random piece of scatter that's like a rock and it's just hanging out on the edge, especially if you end up playing like any of the missions where there's a far objective, I feel like those they make things more frustrating without making them more interesting. So I don't like that.
Question
You've
for
made
you.
some weird faces though.
No, I just want to ask you. So one of the things that I will do because of First Contact and Never Tell Me the Odds that use the objectives that are really close to the edge of the mat, one of the things that I will do occasionally is that I'll set up a piece of terrain that's all the way on the edge of the mat so that I can have a gantry running from it to other things. Because sometimes like you either have to kind of have an elevated piece of terrain like barely cover the objective on the side to leave some space for stuff to be pushed off. But if you kind of go halfway, you can end up in a situation where models can't be shoved off anyway because it's too close to the edge of the mat. And so I'm like, well, might as well like completely move this, elevated piece of terrain to the edge of the mat. And so there's an elevated spot hitting the edge. Is that a thing that annoys you, or is that a thing that you think is cool or neutral?
I specifically enjoy gantries all the way on the edge. That's fine. It's ground level scattered that is touching the edge, especially if it's like a longer oblong piece that's like perpendicular to the edge. Hatred for that. I think it just is annoying and makes it so there's these scenarios where you can just shove your own people into a spot and there's no good shove angles, there's no good anything, and it just makes these really weird kill corners that I don't think enhance the game at all. Maybe that's just my own frustration with some individual scenarios I've been in, but if I see that on a board, I'm like, crap, I don't like that specifically.
Totally fair. All right. Do you have a thing that you would like me to duplicate or do on a table going into the LVO qualifier?
Maybe not on a super competitive table, but or like a finals table or anything. But I think you should do, if it's possible, an like overlap gantry area.
I do really like overlapping gantries. Some of my favorite stuff is when I can set up where an objective has where it's on a gantry, but then there's another gantry nearby that is also close enough for you to contest. That's one of my favorite things when I can set that up. But I also really do love having a gantry going over another gantry. That is cool. I will definitely try to set one of those up for you.
Yay! I like seeing them and I like playing on them. I think they're super unique. I have mixed feelings about when they are right, like two different elevated gantries are right next to each other. I think that can be interesting or can be extremely frustrating, depending on how the objective markers get placed. But at least one crossy road.
All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and close out this episode. Do you want to share thoughts on whether Grogu is rarely reserved or commonly reserved, or do you want me to pick?
I think you know him better.
Grogu is definitely rarely reserved. That little kid does not give a fuck. He's a 70-year-old kid, but man, he is rarely reserved all the time. There is no reservation in his little green cool head. That Grogu, he's rarely reserved. Later, nerds.
Comm signal lost.